thank you to the viewers for joining us today, and to welcome all of you. My name is Tina Wright, and I am the Juneau Suicide Prevention Coalition Coordinator. You're joining us in the Let's Talk About series, which is a community-wide series of our partners. And our effort is to recognize this month as the September Suicide Prevention Month. And our purpose here in having these conversations is to reduce stigma around suicide and mental health, as well as to promote mental health. So we have with us partners that are going to help us to do that, and to link our community to resources, to link us to each other so that we can create more partnerships, and also volunteers. Sometimes there's an opportunity for volunteers as well. In this first week, what we have had is we've had stories of recovery, youth wellness resources from the Teen Health Center and Zach Gordon. You can see those on the JSPC website, or Facebook rather, and then we had Youth Connections, which was Girls on the Run, and the BIPOC Teen Talk from Zach Gordon. Today we have the Tingit Haida Navigators, and we will learn more about their programming. But before I turn it over to them, I want to let everyone know that you can use the chat box to ask questions, or if you're on Facebook Live, submit your questions. And please do that throughout the conversation today so that we can get those addressed. If you're having the question, likely other people are having that question too. So please share. And the other thing that you want to know is that we have closed captioning available on Zoom. So if that's something, if you're on Facebook Live and you would like that to have closed captioning, come to the Zoom room. And I think with that, I will just go ahead and turn it over to, we'll start with Renee Culp, and then we will talk with Michelle Phelps as well. And I want to welcome you, Renee and Michelle. Thank you for being here.
Ganesh, Tina, for having us here today. I'm going to try to start out here, but I have garbage pickup that is happening right outside my house. So if it becomes too noisy, I'll pass it off to Michelle and ask her to pick up. And I think that really reflects kind of a lot of what we're going to be talking about for the next hour, is how to make all of this work inside your home and not exhaust yourself. My name is Renee Culp. I'm also referred to as Klagunk. I am Chukanadi from Glacier Bay via Huna. I currently live in Juneau. I'm the program coordinator for the Navigators program with Tingit Haida Cultural Heritage and Education. We are a prevention early intervention program for American Indian, Alaska Native tribal youth ages 13 to 24. We do a lot of various different things to help out adolescents transition or navigate their world into adulthood, and that includes helping families. And so what we'll be sharing today is what we're helping families take care of in the process of going back to school in a remote world. So I think that's what we'll be looking at today. Before I go into that, I'd like to pass the mic off to Michelle so she can introduce herself.
Hello, my name is Michelle Phelps. I am part of the Navigators program. I am the program specialist. I'm originally from White Mountain, Alaska on the Sword Peninsula. I am a Nupiaq Eskimo. Yeah.
Thank you. So the first question that I guess I wanted to ask is if you could tell us about the programming, and I think we're starting with you, Renee, right? If you could tell us a little bit about the Navigators programming would be great.
So as I indicated, the Navigators program is a prevention early intervention program for adolescents navigating into adulthood. It's a lot of fancy words really to just identify that we're aunties and uncles who help our youth figure out their healthy path by answering 4 important questions in their life. Who am I? Where am I? Where do I want to go? And how do I get there? And so we really work with youth on a long-term basis, very much like prevention programs do. And unlike kind of traditional therapy, that's not what we're about. We're about trying to help youth and families navigate this world and navigate their young lives into adulthood in a healthy, positive way. That doesn't mean that challenges don't arise. That just means that we're trying to help not only provide the necessary skills, but also the support and assistance. And that isn't just for the youth. We also provide quite a bit of assistance for the families as well. Let's see, we're being a voluntary program. We have a lot of fun when we come together. Laughter is one of the Southeast Alaska Native values, so we laugh a lot, we hang out a lot. Very similar to Native gatherings, we eat a lot. And it's just a time to come together, build real strong relationships, connect our youth with resources, get them involved in the culture, and then help them learn how to walk in 2 worlds. Being Indigenous people living in the United States of America, we live in 2 opposing societies that don't necessarily get along very well. And so we help our participants figure out how to do that. Like, what does that look like, and how do I manage that in my world? So that's kind of what the Navigators is about. We do a lot of various different things. So that's kind of who we are.
One of the things, Renee, that I want to say that I really appreciate about the Navigators program is that that our wellness is so connected to our identity, and being able to identify in a healthy way with our culture and with our families is just critical to that overall wellness. So Gunesh Chish for what you do.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate you saying that. We recently have done an international exchange with students in Ghana and Soldotna for resiliency. And when we were presenting who the Navigators were to our Ghana friends and our friends in Soldotna, we had gone over a list of, this is who we are as a group. And the kids really corrected our presentation and said, Renee, you forgot one of the most important things. We care about each other. We treat each other with respect. And that needs to be in there, because that's what we do. That's who we are as people. And so our kids very much are learning who they are and what they're about. They're being able to identify their values, their direction in life. And that's pretty powerful for them. Sheesh for pointing that out, Tina.
Beautiful. So we have, the world has changed, as we know, and hopefully it's going to revert back sooner than we all think. But you have done some amazing things that have been very creative and in response to COVID-19. If you could share what that has been, and also you've got some great things going on to support our kids during school.
Ooh, you aren't kidding that this change has been so significant in so many different ways. Being a prevention program, the Navigators have not slowed down during COVID like many other youth activities have. We've actually ramped up and gone from 110 miles an hour to about 290 miles an hour. We're pretty exhausted, but it's all worth it because of how significantly the world is different. In March, we went completely remote, and we have been doing remote programming completely, except for occasional drive-by parades with our staff to our kids in social distancing, waving from our cars. All of our programming has been remote. And there are definite challenges with that. And our offices have also been working remotely. And so our staff have had a significant amount of time to experience what Zoom fatigue is, and then also figure out how to combat that and really rise up against it. Doesn't mean that we have it perfect, but we definitely have some tips and tricks that Michelle will be sharing later. And then also, while we're working with our families and our kids, we're really looking for feedback from them on what is overwhelming, what helps them, what works, those kind of things. So we'll be sharing those as well. Navigators really works to seek in our community and with our tribal citizens, what do you need? And we work to rise to meet those needs rather than just creating programs that might not be helpful to families. Historically, we have provided a study group for middle school and high school students excuse me, I need to stop my cat from making possible noises that are distracting us. Really reflecting more of what it's like to do, this type of work, including schooling inside your home, and the grace that we have to give ourselves for when there are distractions and disruptions. Because my cat really loves to create some distractions for me during the day. So let's see. And that's historically. Back to our study group. Historically, we have provided study group for middle school and high school students. This year, in recognizing that we have families that are really worried about how they are going to be successful creating remote, doing remote schooling in their homes, we have worked with our tutors and our staff to open up a study group for elementary students as well. And that started this week. So if we could get maybe the study group, the elementary study group flyer up, that would be helpful. The study group, both study groups will be happening on Wednesdays. The elementary study group will be happening, and this is all Alaska Standard Time, 3:15 to 4:15. There is a registration link that you'll see there that you have to register in order to get the Zoom link. And that's for several different reasons, but primarily to keep that Zoom link private until you've actually registered to get into our study group. For study group, we have a homework coach and tutors available that can help with any subject. And then also just help your student get through their assignment. What we are asking for this particular age group is that an adult family member or parent be nearby in case we need access to their assignment, if they're having difficulty getting connected, or there's connectivity difficulties, or if we need just some brief support in getting them refocused. Our staff really are trained in being able to keep kids engaged, and so that's not necessarily what we're asking for, but if they've left and we can't get them back, then we're going to need that adult to help us do that.
Can I ask you, I'm sorry, Renee, can I ask you a question? Is this open to all students, or is this open to American Indian Alaska Native students?
Thank you for clarifying that. Due to our organization and our funding, this is open to Alaska Native American Indian students, Indigenous students.
And is that only in Juneau, or is that for Southeast Alaska or STEPS communities?
Let's see, it is for all of Southeast communities, all of Alaska.
Thank you.
And if you live outside of Alaska, likely we're not going to turn you away either. This is a remote world, and we recognize that we have tribal citizens who live outside of Alaska. So, if you're needing support and you're watching this, that is where you can come in and get help. The service is free. You know, we recognize that that this isn't easy, you know, and we want to motivate our kids for coming. One of our students identified that coming to study group pays. You get good grades and there are door prizes and can win money. So that's Wednesdays. Again, Alaska Standard Time, 3:15 to 4:15. We started this week and it will go through December 2nd. We also have a study group for middle school and high school students. That is also on Wednesdays from 4:30 to 6:30. Kind of the same thing happening there. We have tutors and homework coaches. How both of these study group works is once you get registered and come into the Zoom room, we identify from the students what it is that you need to work on, and we connect you with a tutor or a homework coach, and we put you in a breakout room. So that way you have some private space and quiet space to work with that tutor or that homework coach on your homework project, whatever it is that you're working on. And again, this age group also we also provide door prizes for this group. So again, going to study group, it pays. Those two things really are in recognition that this is a scary time, that this is an uncertain time, and we want to try to be as available in this remote virtual world as possible. If Wednesdays don't work for you, contact us on the number or email, and we have some one-on-one scheduling times that we can work to see if we can get you into a different time one-on-one with one of our tutors. Another thing that we have going on to help students prepare for their schooling, and this is for the next age group up, which is college students. So we have a virtual scholarship workshop that we're going to be hosting this year. This is also an event that we've held historically in person. This is the first time that we're going to be holding it virtually. And for this scholarship workshop, what we do is we do a presentation that talks about what are scholarships, why are scholarships helpful and important to go after. We look at what the FAFSA is and how do you do that application. But we also look at the various different types of other fundings and why scholarships are, in our opinion, the more superior method of paying for your schooling. There's all kinds of information that we provide in that presentation about getting ready to apply for scholarships and getting ready to go. And then one of the benefits of coming to the scholarship workshop is when you fill out that registration form, we ask a little bit of demographics. And the reason why we do that is because we actually go out and find scholarships that line up with those demographics. For example, if you are a Tingit Haida tribal citizen, will bring those scholarships. If you are from Sitka or another tribe, we'll look at those tribes to see what scholarships are available. If you identify that you're a descendant or a shareholder in any of the corporations, we'll bring those forward as well. And then we have some others that people might not be as familiar with, that we just come with a pile of scholarships ready for you to take away from that workshop and leave with your, ahead of the game. Historically, we've asked you to bring your admission and acceptance letters. That's not to prove to us that you've been accepted. That actually has historically been so that we can provide copies for you, because those are expected to go into your scholarship applications. Being virtual, we won't be able to do copies for you. So instead, please just bring your 2019 taxes. And if you're a dependent on your parents or on an adult, bring their 2019 taxes. If your parents or family have any questions, invite them along as well. We recognize that students don't go in this process by themselves, that frequently their families are on the journey with them. And so if they have questions, invite them along as well.
So
So
I'm sorry, go ahead, Renee.
I was just going to finish by those are the resources that we have available this winter for students and families to try to help kind of get their bearings in this remote school world.
That's amazing. That's a ton. Thank you for this. And I want to remind people that this information is on, it's being recorded on Facebook Live. So you will be able to go back to this and get this information off of Facebook Live and YouTube. Or you can connect Renee and you can connect her through the tribe, right, through just Navigators and ask those questions. But I did have a specific question about the scholarships. When is the appropriate time to be thinking about scholarships and applying for college, application and scholarships?
Great question, and I'm actually going to give you a two-part answer. The appropriate time to be thinking about scholarships is actually in middle school. Because in middle school, you're setting your foundation for how you study, how you do your classes, and what grades you're going to be getting, what your effort for your GPA in high school. And although I am not a big proponent on a GPA as the be-all of end-all, for scholarships, GPAs are pretty important for the amount of money that you get. So I always encourage students to learn to increase their GPA, not to try to figure out how to increase their GPA by not learning. Learning is very important, but when you get to those scholarships, that GPA is going to be really important. So I actually tell people to start thinking in middle school about your scholarships, because that's going to start setting your foundation for how you behave in high school when your GPA does affect your scholarship applications. And so that's kind of my first answer. The second answer is historically the scholarship season that you would do your scholarship work, and I refer to it like a job because you will be working hard for those scholarships, but I will tell you they pay off in spades. It is unbelievable how that work pays off later on, and then you don't have to think about that later. It used to be January to about June, July, and now scholarships really are opening up as early as October, September, and that's for the following year. And so we are actually preparing scholarships in this month for the school year 2021, 2022. And that's a lot of preparation ahead. It's hard to think, particularly in COVID world, when you're living from minute to minute, that far ahead, but truly that's where we're going. Now, there are also scholarships that will be available for this year, but those are very rare and pretty much gone. So what we're doing is preparing for next year.
Thank you so
Great
much.
question.
I would also like to add too that I sometimes colleges and university also recognize we do struggle sometimes in that first year of high school, and that's okay too, as long as you pick it up back in your sophomore, junior, and senior year, because everyone loves a comeback story. So don't get discouraged if that first year of high school that you just, it kind of was a struggle for you because you're just still transitioning into high school. Just remember, everyone loves a comeback story.
Thank you for that. That's so encouraging, right? And then too, some of us, I think I started late. Honestly, I didn't realize that I thought I could get started on this like after the kids graduated from high school. But boy, was I wrong to catch up on that. And then there are others that I think that's excellent advice in starting early. So can families that maybe they're not looking at taking college actually in 21-22, academic year 21-22. Is it okay for families that are not quite there yet to come just to see what it's about and some of the things they can pick up, or must they be ready to apply?
Very much so. We encourage learning about this process early and frequently because it is it's a competitive world. The scholarship world is competitive. And so one of the things that we focus on in this workshop is how to make yourself competitive to the other scholarship applicants. So coming and learning about it, even if you don't think that you're ready to hit college in 2021. The other thing is and that I actually surprised myself with when we were looking for scholarship applications last year, we ran into elementary and middle school scholarships that that you can apply for, and then that is just held for you when you go to college at a later date. And so a lot of scholarships will hold on to your award if you identify, I thought I was going to go to, or I might, that kind of thing. You just have to work with this, with the organization that is awarding the scholarship and find out what they're comfortable with. Mm-hmm.
Wow. Thank you for all of that. That's a lot to absorb right there. Again, if you have people in your circle to share this with, please do. It's such a rich resource. And then I think that what we're going to do is, you had both mentioned this thing called Zoom fatigue and how to deal with that. Because all of these are, this is how we have to interface with our world today. And Zoom fatigue is a byproduct of that. We have some beautiful tips from Michelle.
Hey, oh. Have you ever had those moments that you're feeling a little frustrated or a little exhausted after back-to-back video meetings or town halls or social hours or even those online workouts? Well, just know you're not alone. Zoom fatigue is real. So let's talk about why and how we can kind of see the signs of Zoom fatigue, and then how we can avoid and also help us through that process of Zoom fatigue. So let's start with, what exactly is Zoom fatigue? Well, Zoom fatigue is the feeling of being worn out or having that feeling that when you're on a video call that you have to be on all the time. We go through so many virtual meetings, and that you're just kind of feeling overwhelmed and you're feeling exhausted. So let's talk about some physical signs with Zoom fatigue. So let's start off with the most common one, which is sore eyes. If you're into back-to-back meetings all day, you're going to, and you're just looking at the screen, you're going to have moments that you're going to have excessive, eyes tearing, or you might be blinking quite a lot because you're looking at the screen. The other things that can be happening is you can have blurry vision or double vision. The other thing that can be happening is eye irritation or eye pain. I've got to tell you, before I came on here, my right eye was feeling a little twitchy, and it is probably because of me being on this computer all day in meetings. And those are some of the effects of us being in this virtual world. So if we scroll down just a little bit, there's also some physical body aches that we get. We have headaches, we'll get migraines, and it's because of we're seeing this blue light here that can cause those headaches and migraines. The other thing too, compared to us being in an office or in a classroom, we're having body aches. And those body aches are from us being just in one position. We're sitting, we're not moving around. If we were in a classroom or an office, we have those moments where we can get up and go up some stairs or go down some stairs, say hi to someone in the other side of the office building. Or if we're in a classroom, we have those periods where we're changing classes, where we're going from one class to the next class. Being in this position of always sitting down is going to cause our body to ache. So some other things that are also there is also the imbalance that we have with Zoom fatigue, all right? And some of that can be the lack of focus. We have if you're always on this and your attention is always on this one thing, you're going to have moments where you're going to lose focus on other things that you need to get done during the course of your day because your attention is focused on this one thing. The other thing that can be happening too is feeling that you're not able to get your words in, right? If you're in a classroom with lots of other people, you kind of have to fight through that navigation of, well, I need to ask a question. How do I ask a question if there's 20 other people? So that can lead to some of that frustration and confusion and just kind of wanting to just kind of like, I'm tired of this. The other thing that can be coming from this is that general exhaustion with video calls. I've got to tell you, we've been doing video conferencing for so long that yes, I'm feeling a little tired of this. And it can be hard because you got to move on to that next meeting or that next activity, and knowing that it's in this virtual world, in this little spot that you're sitting, wherever that may be. So that can feel really exhausting. The other thing it could be is also is that feeling of disconnect. That feeling of disconnect again is that we are isolating right now, and it's just us and whoever is in our bubble here. We have a harder time maybe connecting with people who are outside. Maybe we're just not thinking about giving a call to a friend because we're just focused on this little space right here. And it can be it can have that feeling of disconnect. So and also too, with that feeling of disconnect, you can have that feeling of sadness or frustration, or just feeling overwhelmed and exhausted and tired and just wanting to just say, forget it. I don't want to join this meeting today. Can I just leave, please? But those are just all the signs of that Zoom fatigue. Renee, did you want to add anything else with this?
Yeah, I think just kind of in thinking about that last one that was feeling overwhelmed, one of the things that I have noticed with not only the employees that we're working with, as Michelle said, we're exhausted, but also with the youth that come into to our virtual spaces. We're experiencing an imbalance of our whole self. And so the first couple of the signs of Zoom fatigue really focused a lot on physical, what happens physically to your body. And then the next column, the overall imbalance, really is looking at physical fatigue is also a little bit mental as well. But then the next column, the overall imbalance, really has to do with that imbalance of the physical, the mental, because you're just so strapped, and being inside this box is mentally exhausting. But it also affects us emotionally. That disconnect isn't just that we're socially isolating or only interacting with people in our bubbles, but I don't know about you, as much as the three of us are in this space together, it still doesn't feel as intimate and as connected when we're all sitting together in a panel. And so that feeling of disconnect really starts to affect our emotions and our spirit. So the overall imbalance, what we're referring to, is really truly a mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical imbalance that is really important to be aware of. And all of it happens because of being on Zoom or in some sort of virtual video conferencing world. Zoom is what a lot of people are using, so we use Zoom fatigue. It's unfortunate that Zoom gets that name, but it's really actually video conferencing fatigue, and it affects us so all encompassing, and we get to the end of the day and we wonder why we're so tired. Really, it's because if you've been on it all day, all week, you're gonna be exhausted. One of the things that for the Juneau School District, I was concerned about the short breaks that the students have between Zoom classrooms. For myself, I mandate 15-minute breaks between Zoom meetings at the very minimum. If I can do 30 minutes, that's better. And so when people are asking me to schedule meetings, if I am ending one Zoom, I'll tell them, no, I'm not available at that time. I'm available at a different time. And that's because when we first started this, I did back-to-back, and my eyesight changed. I was exhausted. I was angry. I was irritable. And to be able to keep up with that pace is just physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, almost impossible. So how can you avoid Zoom fatigue is a lot of what we've figured out. And I'll pass that back off to Michelle, but just really all encompassing is what I really wanted to share.
Thank you.
So what are some ways that you can avoid Zoom fatigue or video conferencing fatigue? And along with this too, we're also going to talk about some solutions too. So with that said, some things that you can do to avoid it is don't multitask. It may seem convenient to be in a Zoom meeting and take that moment and maybe write that email or look at your calendar at that moment. But statistically, it's been proven that when you're doing this, you're actually going to lose 40% of that production time. It can also put your brain on one thing and off on another thing. And then in between the meetings, the video conferencing, there might have been something that was important that you needed to write down and you may have forgotten. So it also leads to some memory loss or some not remembering a certain detail or something like that. So don't use this time. When you're video conferencing, don't multitask. The other thing that can be happening, what can happen in Zoom fatigue, to avoid Zoom fatigue, is reducing your screen time, all right? If we're in this virtual world all the time or throughout the day with back-to-back meetings, and we're looking at the screen, but we're not just looking at the screen, we're looking at who's on right now. We're also looking at what kind of furniture do they have? What kind of earrings are they wearing? What's on their background? So that can lead to that strain and that over stimulation of the brain that we're seeing right here. So the best thing to do is just take some time. Is like what Renee was saying, take that 15 minutes afterward, during the breaks in your meetings, and do something else, but don't do it on a screen. Take and look at an object far away. If you've got something in your room that you can focus on that's more than 10 feet away or 15 feet away, look at that and just kind of refocus your attention on something else. So the other thing too is when you're in these Zoom meetings, is taking moments and build in mini breaks in your meetings. So the one thing that we've been doing in our adulting course, we've actually put in a mini break in there, and that can be anywhere. That's about a 5-minute break in that adulting course that we're doing, because we know, 20 minutes or 30 minutes being focused on the screen can overwhelm the eyes. So giving the opportunity and stretch. I mean, and even if you're in a meeting, take a moment and stretch. Maybe take a couple of deep breaths, but finding those moments that you can take a mini break in. The other thing too, if we go to the next one, is that those visual, when we do have those social events, right? And when we're thinking about those social events, right? And they're online and they're virtual, let's have them be optional, right? And knowing that, yes, you might have a meeting with a friend tonight over Zoom because you're social distancing, but also know too that you can say no to that, right? Those social interactions that you're having online virtually, letting your friend know that, okay, I really had a long day today of back-to-back meetings. I'm really feeling frustrated. How about we talk over the phone? How do you feel about that? I can do that. That'll allow me, my eyes to not be focused on the screen, but I can still talk to you. We can still have a conversation. So thinking about other options when it comes to that social interaction with one another. So then you're also thinking outside the box too. If we go down, this was the one I was kind of saying earlier, was looking at distance, right? So if you see this, this is a desk in front of a window. If you're on your computer screen all day, you're just looking at something that's really close, within a feet, 6 inches away from each other, right? So you're looking at that screen. Well, if you move it and you have a window and you can look out your window and see some distance, you're allowing your eyes to focus on something further away, working those eyes a little bit. So giving that opportunity. If we go down one, if you start feeling that your eyes are feeling dry or they're feeling tired, something that you can do is you can use some eye drops, or you can just put a cool rag over your eyes. The other thing that you can do, if you're feeling a little overwhelmed and need a break, is going outside. Renee, do you want to talk on this one?
Yes, I would. A really interesting thing about the human body and the Mother Earth outdoors, however you want to refer to being outside, is the vibration that happens inside our body, and the Earth's vibration happens at the same level. One of the things that happens when we are on electronics all day long, whether that's our cell phone, playing games, or in Zoom meetings or Zoom classrooms all day, is our vibration actually changes inside of our body, and we are off balance with our vibration. And so by going outside, what you're doing is you're actually recalibrating your vibrations by using the vibrations of the earth to get you back to your equilibrium, back to your balance. And when you go outside after being on a screen all day, you'll actually feel it. As Alaskans, as Southeasterners, we love being outside. And I believe the reason why is we can feel that rebalancing. And it's a benefit that we get to have all the time. So that's our encouragement, to get outside, not necessarily just for exercise, though we encourage that, but really truly to get that recalibration of your vibrations. Thank you, Michelle.
So going to connecting with others, right? So when it comes to connecting with others, you want to be able to have a moment there when you're disconnected from the whole thing, from your laptop, whatever electronic you have, and whoever is in your bubble, in your social distancing bubble, in your home, and allowing that opportunity for that physical contact in the way of a hug, you know, or, you know, a bear hug, or just that feeling that you get, that feeling of love in that moment. If you can't have those moments where you can connect with someone, like holding each other, something that you can do is you can, again, use some social media. You can use the social media to connect with a loved one. And that's what it is, making sure that you make some time to connect with loved ones that you miss and long for. And having that physical contact, or either having that, you know, that moment there where you can laugh with one another, you know, because laughter is going to be a big help in this moment when we're really struggling with our Zoom fatigue, having a moment to have a laugh. As you can see here, we have two sisters, they're waving, they're smiling, they're having a good moment right there. On to the next one. The next one is about exercise, right? Because we are so in this moment of just sitting down, being in front of the computer, being in front of the iPad, whatever that may be, that screen that you have in front of you, we're not really getting active. We're not getting out there compared to if we were in the office or at school, where we'd be moving around all day. So remembering to take time each day to either go for a walk in nature, or doing a little bit of exercise, or even if you can't, maybe in between your breaks. I've got to tell you, one thing I've been doing is I'll just take a 5-minute dance break. And that's what I'll do. I'll turn on some music, cheer myself up, and just dance for a few minutes. I'm working out just that 5 minutes, and trust me, those 5 minutes add up after a while. So just doing something to get active, get some exercise. On to the next one is doing something that you enjoy. What do you remember as, you know, what did you like when you were younger? Maybe it was a hobby of maybe photographing, or maybe it's art, or maybe it's knitting, or maybe it's reconnecting with your beading, or whatever that thing may be. Just try to find something that you used to enjoy that's not on a screen. It will allow you to get your mind off that screen, but also let you do something that you'll like. And you can also do, what you can do is, you know, you can do that with your family. Do something you guys enjoy together. Have a game night together, to where you just shut off all the electronics and have a game night. Play Monopoly, you know, or play the game of life. You know, take that time with your family that you have with you. And the last one, or the next one, is mindfulness. I've got to tell you, taking those mindfulness breaks are very helpful. Before I even went on this Zoom meeting, I did a 1-minute mindfulness activity, and that all consists of just letting my body loose, taking some deep breaths, and doing a couple of affirmations. So then when I came into this meeting, I wasn't feeling nervous or too nervous. I wasn't feeling too nervous. I'm still nervous. Don't get me wrong. I'm still gonna have moments I'm nervous, but I'm not as much as probably if I didn't do the mindfulness to get myself relaxed for this. So think about mindfulness to help you out. We kind of talked about hugs and the power of hugs, of their healing, and just how powerful they are. And don't forget about humor and laughter, because right now this is a very hard time, and the more laughter and the more humor that we can come during this time will also help us out too. Humor is the best medicine. I know recently I'm a big action movie fan, but lately I've been gravitating to comedies. If I'm gonna watch something, I'm gonna watch a comedy. Or if I'm gonna read something, I'm reading something funny, because I want to laugh. I want to feel good. Renee, do you want to add anything to that?
I think that was all wonderful, Michelle. Thank you for sharing those tips and tricks that we've been able to figure out, and recognizing that we're almost done. I'd like to pass it off to Tina, and thank you, Michelle. That was great.
Yes, thank you, thank you, thank you. I feel like I just want to start every day, start the morning with you every day, right? So thank you. And then it's such a good reminder to me. Sometimes we hear things, but that doesn't mean that we remember them enough to practice them like would be helpful, right? And get some rituals going there on doing that. And so when you are working with our youth, do you build this in, like in the study groups, these wonderful breaks and helping them to go through the Zoom and or to combat the fatigue, I guess?
Yes, we do. We talk about it quite a bit. We share the things that we've figured out. We do quite a bit of mindfulness. It's one of the things that we have been doing with the kids in Compass Gathering with our participants since the beginning, recognizing that getting to a mindful state is one of the strongest benefits that you can do for yourself during COVID, during any time. But COVID mindfulness has been a lifesaver for a lot of people. Mm-hmm.
So we did have one of the questions is in recognizing how difficult it is to start new habits. How do we start new habits, including mindfulness and physical breaks? How might we start
that? So yes, that is very difficult, starting new habits, particularly in a chaotic world that we're living in right now. I have several tricks that I use. One of one of the most important things is to identify how important it is for you. Michelle currently is doing an adulting class, and one of the things that she identifies in her time management is if the task or activity is not important to you, you won't initiate it and it won't become a practice in your life. So identifying how important it is and making it important for yourself. I would say that there are a couple of times during the day that I try to implement mindfulness. It's in the morning, at night before I go to bed. And then one of the things that Michelle said was just before I got on, I did a 1-minute mindfulness. And I cannot tell you how many times I have done mindfulness just before I started a meeting. And not just meetings like this where we're going in front of live Facebook and we know it's being recorded and the pressure and stress of that. But when people ask me, how are you doing, Renee? I honestly say, well, in this moment, I'm doing okay, or this moment, I'm not, because COVID world, it is moment by moment. And so recognizing how much mindfulness helps, I just do it when I need to do it. The thing is we've been practicing it. So we've got a handful of various different short and longer mindfulness activities that we can do. And that's what I would say is to get into the internet and start looking at mindfulness activities that are 1 minute long, up to 5-10 minutes long. Just a quick little kind of funny thing. I don't know if any of you have cable, but the Calm commercials that are coming on where they do the rain for 15 to 30 seconds. In my household, when that commercial comes on, we literally stop everything we're doing and just stop and allow that commercial to direct us. And that in itself has been helping. So now when I turn on Calm and I hear that rain, my body's like, sweet, we're going into Calm. It also has been such a significant practice with that commercial that our cat now stops what she's doing when she hears the rain, and she just is like, okay, what we're doing is stopping our world right now. And so there are ways to practice, but going back to what Michelle's tip is, if you don't put it as important in your world, you won't, no matter what you do to practice, it won't get started.
Right. And what you always exemplify is having good boundaries and protecting them, protecting that time for yourself, I think is really great. I wish we had another hour. We're coming up to the close. I do want to thank everybody for joining us, and especially our guests. Thank you very much. And there was one question, Renee, that from Ketchikan. People that we want to connect our people, but we also want to connect our organizations. Is there a reach out to you if there were any tips or anything? This is from Ketchikan that was putting together a youth programming. So if that information you'll be able to find again on Facebook, or all of the flyers that have been there. Again, this has been on Facebook Live, so you can find it again on YouTube or Facebook Live. It's recorded, and I want to, before we close, thank you profoundly and let you know a little bit about what is coming up next week. So join us again. Yes.
I would just like to point out to the audience that URL link for the Padlet that that we were showing during this presentation, that's online and will be open as a resource for any of you forever. So put that in your URL, and that has the flyers that you saw to be able to get the link to those those study groups, and then also all of the reminders of tips and tricks. So that Padlet will be open forever.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And let's see, do we have another question? So we put that also, those links we put in the chat box on Zoom as well. And then before we go, I want to invite you all to join us again. Next week, we're going to have Suicide Prevention 101, ACEs and trauma-sensitive practices, and then QPR training. Basically, that is, how do we ask the questions if somebody is feeling suicidal? How do we persuade them to get help, and how to make referrals? And then Talk Saves Lives is our concentration next week. It is the actual Suicide Prevention Week within the Suicide Prevention Month, which we know that suicide prevention is very much upstream and having positive mental health and big thanks to both you, Renee and Michelle, and for helping us to promote that and taking care of our community.